Is English a Germanic language part 2? Hello and welcome back to the second part of RobWords video. He will teach us even more today than the last time. I have learned so much in the first part. I can't wait to get into the second part. If you do like the content of this channel, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channels. I still am a very small YouTube channel and I rely on your help to grow a little more. Thank you so much for helping me out. And let's jump straight into the video. We have watched the first part, the first 10 minutes and 42 seconds the last time, and now we'll watch it right up until the end and find out even more about it. By the way, just real quick information, I am recording the second part right after filming the first one. So this means I haven't read the comments that you wrote under the first part. I can't react to them because I don't know them yet. Please consider that when you write comments if I do say something that you have already clarified under the comments of part 1. I wasn't able to read those comments yet. Please keep that in mind. And let's continue.
So those are a couple of ways in which English shows off its Germanic roots today, but it also often betrays that it is specifically West Germanic as opposed to North Germanic, aka Scandinavian, particularly when we use verbs like to speak. You see how German and Dutch have similar words, but the Scandinavian languages do not. They use words that are actually related to our word tell, except for Norwegian, that is, which uses a word that's related to our word snack. Seriously.
Interesting, because in northern Germany, people have a different word, like they use the word sprechen as well when they want to say speak. But they also have the word schnacken when it comes to sprechen. That's very interesting and very close to this one.
Seriously. I guess it's all about opening and closing your mouth, isn't it?
It's also
we do something similar
only
when we
North
sleep
Germany, though.
too. Sleep is rather like the
Schlafen.
other West Germanic words for the same thing, but rather different to
Sofa? Schlafen, slapen, to sleep. Sofa. That's funny.
the North Germanic words. However, let me show you one more example that rather messes with my point here, because it's going to lead us onto something really interesting. Let's take our verb take and compare it to its equivalents across the other Germanic languages. Do you notice something? All of a sudden, English aligns better with the North Germanic languages, the Scandinavian languages, than it does with its siblings, the West Germanic languages. So what's going on here? Well, now I get to talk about the next big historical event for English after the creation of Old English in England, the arrival in England of the Vikings. In 793, the Anglo-Saxons are just minding their own business when suddenly some nasty Norsemen turn up and ransack a monastery on the northeast coast. The Viking assault on Lindisfarne kicks off a series of sporadic attacks which are followed by out-and-out land grabs and the eventual colonisation of a huge chunk of England by Scandinavian settlers. And these Danes, as they were often called by the Anglo-Saxons, brought with them their own language, the thoroughly North Germanic Old Norse. In the area settled by the Norsemen, the so-called Danelaw, Old Norse speakers and Old English speakers were rubbing up against one another, often in fact marrying one another, it seems. And so the two languages were sometimes being spoken in the same household, and they started to influence one another, resulting in a whole load of Viking words entering into the English language. There are a lot of Old Norse-derived words in modern English. In fact, I made a whole video about it a while back. But, you know, glorious examples are words like sky and skill and egg and husband. The Viking wind-eye became our window, and to our English shirt we added the Scandinavian skirt. But the change also runs much deeper than just the names for things. Old Norse fundamentally changed some of our most essential verbs. It's influenced how we say who we are, because are is a borrowing from the Vikings. And to finally get back to my point here, the word take is also a borrowing from the invading Danes. So what did it replace? Well, the Old English nimman, which fits in much more neatly with our West Germanic siblings. The Vikings are also responsible for all of the th pronouns, they, them, and their, which displaced Old English alternatives, meaning a sentence
Oh, so it's a Vikings' fault that Germans are not able to appropriately pronounce English vocabularies. I had no idea that the Vikings influenced the English language that much.
Pronouns they, them, and their, which displaced Old English alternatives, meaning a sentence like, they are taking their eggs, is all Viking, baby. Oh, and that thing
Ooh.
we do after we've finished saying everything that we have to say when we die? Well, we borrowed that word from the Scandinavians too. In fact, if we were still using our original West Germanic word for popping our clogs, we'd be describing all dying as starving. 'Tis true, look at the German and Dutch words
Sterben,
for
yeah.
to die. So the upshot of all of this is
Oh,
that English,
wow,
while being
okay.
a West Germanic language, also has a load of North Germanic vocabulary. And so far as I know, that makes it unique. No other Germanic language spans the subfamilies in this way, even if you take into account that a lot of North Germanic languages have borrowed words from the West Germanic language, that is, English. So a big point of this video is kind of to say that it isn't really possible for one language to be more Germanic than another. However, the fact that it represents both existing branches of the Germanic language tree — there was a third, by the way, East Germanic, which included Gothic, but that's
Gothic.
extinct now — I feel like that has to bolster English's Germanic credentials. But any argument that English is more Germanic than other Germanic languages falls down very quickly when you bring up words like these. These are the Germanic languages.
Yeah, okay. Autumn, fall. By the way, I don't know about autumn and fall. Isn't one of them UK English and the other American English? I know some people don't like it when I differentiate those languages from one another like that, but I don't know how else to say it. Like English and American, maybe that way. So is one English and one American? Autumn and fall? Isn't fall English and American is autumn, or the other way around? I don't know. But in German, it's Herbst. That's true. Which I think is very complicated for a non German speaker to say because it has all those complicated letters one after the other, like R, B, S, T. Herbst. 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 Oh, and here it is Horst, Horst, Haust, Höchst, Herbst.
Falls down very quickly when you bring up words like these. These are the Germanic languages' names for what we call autumn or fall. And notice how none of the other ones call it anything similar. They all use words actually that are related to our word harvest, which is what we once called that
Oh.
time of year. English, though, is the odd one out. Autumn is obviously not Germanic, it's a French word, but fall is a Germanic word. However, we're the only ones using it like that. Then there's another thing that separates English from the Germanic crowd: the fact that we don't have grammatical gender. We only have one word for the because we don't have masculine, feminine, or neuter nouns.
I'm sorry. In English, it's one word. In the other languages, it's like two or three. And in German, it's that he doesn't because three words are not enough. It's the only language. Oh. It didn't even have the space to put all of them here. It just etc. Oh my god.
Then there's another thing that separates English from the Germanic crowd: the fact that we don't have grammatical gender. We only have one word for the because we don't have masculine, feminine, or neuter nouns. But all the other Germanic languages have at least two grammatical genders, except Afrikaans, which has been living outside of the neighbourhood for so long that it's lost them. Not having grammatical gender is not very Germanic. Although, to be fair, it's not very Romance either. Indeed, it is not very Indo-European. It really is very weird. And yet, we manage. However, it may well be that the very thing about a minute ago I used to claim that English could be seen as extra Germanic is the reason why it is so un-Germanic when it comes to grammatical gender. One of the best theories we have for why English lost the masculine, feminine and neuter of Old English is that the clash of the Old English gender system with Old Norse's gender system led speakers of the new hybrid language to just call the whole thing off. If that's the case, I'm very glad they did. Whether or not it is, though, we know that grammatical gender definitely didn't survive the next big major event for the English language, the arrival of the Normans. When William of Normandy crosses over from France and seizes the crown of England, becoming William the Conqueror in the process, that is generally taken as around the time when Old English becomes Middle English. Because a massive change happens in English, brought about by the language of the leadership of the land suddenly becoming French. A whole tranche, a huge cache of French words get absorbed into English over the few centuries where the French speakers are in charge, accounting for the majority of that. The French language influences English in lots of other ways too, however, that's for a video called How French is English, which I just so happen to have already made. But any suggestion that modern English is somehow no longer Germanic centres around what happens in the centuries after the Normans arrive and the way English is transformed by French. However, I just want to point out something that perhaps doesn't get said often enough, and that is that the French that gets brought over to England is not French like we know today. And I don't just mean that it's Old French, I mean that it is a specific dialect of Old French, the one spoken by the Normans. But do you know who the Normans actually were?
No.
Why they were called the Normans? It's because to their neighbours on the continent, a Norman was a Northman, because they had come from the north. And where in the north? Scandinavia. The original Norman was a fella called, not Norman, but Rollo, one of the most famous Vikings of all time. And all the Norman kings, including William the Conqueror, are his descendants. So the Normans were essentially Vikings who moved to France and learned the local lingo. And what's more, that lingo had also previously been influenced by the West Germanic language of the Franks. So therefore you can say that Norman French was a French with Germanic characteristics. That's part of the reason why some of the French words in English are noticeably different from their modern French equivalents. Modern French being primarily descended from a dialect from Paris. The best example I can think of is our word war, which is related to the modern French word for war, guerre. In fact, war and guerre are the same word, just one of them has a Germanic w sound from the Normans and the other has a distinctly Gallic.
Wow. Norman French and modern French. I wish I could watch a video like this about the German language. I wish there was a video like that about the German language, because I find this so interesting to find out all the influences that made the language, the English language, what it is nowadays. Is there a video about this on the German language? Maybe Rob did a video about this for the German language as well. I have to watch that if it exists. That
"g" thing is also why William is called William, not the typical French equivalent Guillaume. Actually, interestingly, in a few more instances, we've ended up taking forms from both Frenches at different stages, giving us similar words but with w and g versions. Warden and guardian is one example. Warranty and guarantee is another. Anyway, my ultimate big point here is like, that even the French that ends up doing so much to make English seem less Germanic is a bit Germanic itself. Some of these are Germanic-tinged French words. So I hope that I've persuaded you already that English is very Germanic, insofar as any language can be very Germanic. But I also want to point out that English continues to develop in a typically Germanic way. For example, when we invent new words, we generally use a Germanic formula to do so. When we encounter a new concept, rather than innovate a completely new name for it, we'll often just smash together words we already have to make longer compound words. It's something that German is notorious for, but we do to a less extreme extent as well.
Dishwashing machine, yeah. Geschirr, Spülmaschine. Yeah.
Think about words like crowdfund, clickbait, or facepalm. And the order in
Ah.
which we place the words we're smooshing together follows a Germanic blueprint as well, with modifiers always coming before nouns. For example, man bun or smartphone. Don't take that order for granted. If English had somehow over the centuries become a Romance language, as some people quite wrongly claim, a skyscraper wouldn't be a skyscraper. It'd be something like a scrape sky, like it is in French, Italian, and Spanish. Here's one more
Grazie-cielo.
Germanic compound for you, newsletter. I have got a completely free one that you should sign up to. It's just wordy, nerdy fun once a week in your email inbox. You should check it out. And I'll see you in whatever you choose to watch next. Maybe this.
English words nobody can
Take care.
explain. Ooh, he's got so many interesting videos. I'm gonna end up reacting to all of his videos on my channel over the years. English words nobody can explain. Okay, so I don't know what happened, but the moment I saved this video, my computer, or at least the browser, shut itself down. It's not closing, but it's not moving anymore either. It's not opening new tabs. It's not doing anything. So I'm just going to say what I wanted to say about this video. Okay, computer, what the heck? Okay, so I just saved the video, the other one that we have just seen. I saved it into my file so that we can watch it sometime soon, hopefully, because it seems like a very interesting video. This channel is gold. It's such a cool channel, and you start to look at a language in a different way after watching one or two videos of his. It just opens up a perspective about words you are using day to day without even thinking about them. Maybe I thought about them a little more than you did because I learned English as a second language. And when you do that, you have to understand what you are doing when you're building sentences. Not so much when you learn it as a little kid and you just speak the language, but in order to learn it as a second language, you have to dissect it. So you're looking onto different things very differently than a native speaker. And I've run into problems talking to people from the UK. For example, when I talked to my friend Jay from the UK and I asked him something about the English language, and he did never think about this actual word or sentence or whatever I'm asking about. And he's like, wait a minute, I have to think about this in order to be able to answer your question because I have never ever thought about the language in this way. It's very funny. Every time that happens, I enjoy it very much. This recommendation was gold. Thank you so much. You know who you are. One of my longest Patreons who recommended this video to me. Thank you so much. And I hope you had as much fun as I had watching this video together with me. I will see you in the next one. Have a nice day. Bye.